Hello, and welcome to Message in the Middle with Marianne. We all know that life is hard, right? It's messy, it's unpredictable, but it can be wonderful all at the same time. My hope is that we can take a deep dive into self-development topics and explore life's lessons through book clubs, conversations, and interviews. And together, we can uncover the lessons that others have already learned to help us navigate this crazy, wonderful ride called life. Hello and welcome to Message in the Middle with Marianne. I'm your host, Marianne, and today I have Roni Travis joining me. Roni is a health and lifestyle transformation coach with a decade of experience in the fitness and health industry. She started her own journey chasing a number on the scale, only to discover that true happiness lies in loving and nurturing our bodies from within. Armed with that information, Roni is on a mission to help other women embrace the skin they're in and redefine what it means to feel good by prioritizing well-being over numbers on a scale. Roni, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Marianne. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm excited to talk to you because many of the topics that you focus on and the work you do are near and dear to many of the people in my private Facebook group and who listen to the podcast. So I'd love it if we could just take a step back and talk a little bit about your own relationship with food and body and what being healthy looks like. Can you share a little bit about that backstory with our listeners?
So basically, like most young girls, when I started to, gain some weight and feel uncomfortable in my body, I went straight to Instagram and I was like, what do I do? And I found fit, good-looking Instagram models and influencers. And I was like, okay, what are they doing? And I just started adapting their lifestyle. And I worked out 6-7 days a week. I ate, clean and perfect and did all the things that they told me to do. And you know what? It worked. I did it. I lost the weight. I did all the things. But I remember that day where I saw the number that I'd been working towards and I hopped off the scale. I looked in the mirror and I wanted to cry and not tears of joy. I wanted to cry because I still didn't like what I saw, right? I still looked in the mirror and I was not happy with the person looking back at me. And I didn't understand. Like I did everything they told me to do. I was perfect and none of it worked. And not only was I not confident, but like I felt like crap. Like I had no energy. I didn't want to go out and enjoy my social life. My life was not, what they promised me that it would be. And that was when I kind of had this realization that, okay, if the number on the scale isn't going to make me love myself, then, something's got to give. I've got to do something else. And that was when the real journey began. And I started getting more into strength training, which naturally helped my relationship with food. And I didn't even realize at the time that, all of the quote unquote healthy habits that all of these influencers gave me were really disordered eating habits. Things like, we're not allowed to drink our calories, or you can't eat carbs if you didn't work out, or you can't eat carbs after 6. All of these things were leading to such an unhealthy relationship with food that I didn't even realize I was doing because I thought I was just healthy and disciplined. But really, that discipline was disordered. And it took me a while to kind of break those habits. And like, if I'm being honest, they still come up now, right? Because those patterns are so ingrained in my brain, but I know better now, right? I get to choose differently. And, it was losing all of that weight and not loving myself is kind of what led me to where I am today, where it's really combining the real self-love, right? Not just the flaky self-love, but the real inner work and self-love with finding a healthy lifestyle that works for me, right? That helps me actually feel better and feel energetic, but really love what I see in the mirror. And that journey, like I like to say that my real journey began after I lost all the weight and I didn't like what I saw.
Yeah. What a pivotal moment, right? Really. I mean, you nailed it when you said that you did all the things and got to the place where society promised you'd be happy and boom, you weren't. Mic drop, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I want to just dig into that just a tiny bit more because I actually heard you do a post this morning about I think it was titled The Truth About Living a Healthy Lifestyle.
Yeah.
And it ties so well into this topic. And I really loved what you said there because, well, I don't want to give it away. I'm going to let you go on your soapbox for a minute. But it's true. It really is true that a lot of what we see is not really a real healthy lifestyle, quote unquote real.
Yeah.
So can you elaborate a little bit on what you were talking about? I mean, you alluded to some of it a minute ago, but it was so good. It really was so good.
Yeah. So, what I was talking about in that post was how those influencers that I was telling you I went to, they tell us that it is healthy to work out, 6, 7 days a week and not take rest periods. It's healthy to push through even when you're sick. It's healthy to, only eat certain foods and never enjoy yourself. And what I think we forget is that all of those influencers are, first of all, they're paid to look like that and to live that lifestyle and to promote all the supplements that they're giving us. Like, I used to spend so much money on supplements because they told me that they were healthy when most of the time they're just laxatives. And yeah, we'll get into that another time. But like their lifestyle is unattainable because like most of them, they don't have kids. And if they do have kids, well, their full-time job is just to promote this healthy lifestyle, right? Because they're just influencers. And the thing that, like I was saying a little bit in my intro there, is that their lifestyle's not actually healthy because it's not actually a balanced lifestyle, right? They're not actually allowing themselves to enjoy all of what life is because they are just focused on fitness and health. And living a real healthy, balanced lifestyle is about checking all of the boxes, right? So it's not just that you got your workouts in or you eat healthy foods. It's allowing yourselves to fill your cup socially, to do something fulfilling with your work or your purpose, and checking all of those boxes. And I think what people forget is that actually living a healthy life is much simpler than we think, right? We look at these influencers and we think, okay, if I want to be healthy, then I have to work out as much as she does. I have to eat like she does and, wake up at 6 and do my morning routine and do everything perfectly. But that's not the case, right? Living a healthy lifestyle is so much more simple than we know, but it's only modeled by people who do it for a living. So we can't really see that. Right. And the truth is that living a healthy lifestyle comes down to the basics. It comes down to the basics and doing the best you can with that. And when you can really allow yourself to see that, you don't have to be perfect and you don't have to do it the way anyone else does it, that's when you get that freedom to really stick with it. Because the reason so many of us don't stick with it is that we think that we have to do it the way that somebody else is doing it. And that's just not the case.
I agree with that. I think that the all or nothing thinking often is the biggest obstacle because we tell ourselves, I messed up, so I might as well not do anything else for the rest of the week, month, year, whatever. Mm-hmm. Or, if I didn't do this one thing, then it's not going to work. And it's exactly what you said. It's just stick with the basics as much as you can, as often as you can, and move in that direction. It doesn't have to be quote unquote perfect.
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give to women who have this thought that they'll finally be enough or they'll finally be satisfied when they lose the weight or they find the perfect partner or they land the next job? What is your thought around that?
So I would tell them that I totally understand. And that was how I lived my life for the first 25, 26, 27 years. And that was my exact story, right? It was like, okay, if I can get good grades in school, then I'll finally feel good enough. That didn't work. Okay, when I get into the school I want to, then that'll make me feel good enough. That didn't work. And every single thing, it was the weight, and then it was the boyfriend, and then it was the house. And every single time I checked something off, I was left feeling empty. And what I think we don't realize is that nothing outside of us can make us feel anything until we change the way we feel first. And I know it's one of those things that sounds really nice. And it's like, yeah, sure. Okay. I would love that. And I totally get it because I was doubtful. I was skeptical. I was one of those people. I was like, no, just give me the $10,000 a month and trust me, I will feel happier. And I didn't. And that was when I finally was like, okay, fine. Like, message received, universe. I get it that I have to choose to be happy first. And again, that was when I kind of started to realize that it was true, right? All of these things couldn't actually change the way that I felt about myself. And the best way to practice feeling enough is to find ways that you can be grateful for your body and for your life and for, whatever you have now, and feel that feeling now. Because the truth is the reason we want anything in life is because we think it's going to make us feel a feeling. And it's warranted because that's what society tells us, right? If your life looks like this person, then you'll be happy. But it's all a big lie, right? It's all a big lie because nothing can change the way we feel. And if you don't believe me, I challenge you to look at something in your life that you have right now that you have always wanted.
Yeah.
And ask, did that change your life? Did that make you feel that feeling? Because that, for me, it's, a bit of a rough wake-up call, but that was what kind of helped me realize that, no, I have everything that the version of me 3 years ago wanted, and I still don't feel good enough. And the thing is we can keep chasing, right? We can keep setting goals and going for more. And that's great, but it's never going to give you that feeling until you can feel it now. And I know it feels easy to look at other people and say, oh, well, if I had what they had, then I would feel good enough. But one, everybody has their crap. Everybody has their things that they have going on behind the scenes. And two, we don't know what work they did to get there. Right. So practice, I know it's corny and everybody says it, but gratitude is so big for a reason. And when you can allow yourself to really be grateful for what you have, that's when you can allow yourself to get more. But we can't get more until we allow ourselves to be grateful for what we have.
I love the tip on telling people to think back to 3 years ago and the things that they wanted and whether or not they have some of them in their life now, and did it really make a difference? Because it's such an easy exercise to do. It really quickly came to mind where multiple times in my life I was like, well, if I just get that promotion, or I just get that, right? I know better now, but I do remember those moments, and I remember getting it and almost not even stopping for 3 seconds to recognize it. It was just like, okay, what now?
Yep.
Moving to that next thing. So that's a really good exercise for people to do. So I wanted to ask you about limiting beliefs, because I know with the experiences that you went through and the ups and downs, you've dealt with some of that. And I think it's a common thing, especially for women, to have to deal with, whether it's around losing weight, it's around a new job, it's around a new partner. It could be around anything really. But how has that shown up for you, and what advice can you give around that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Limiting beliefs are something that I know for me, it was my biggest thing holding me back. And it's the same for a lot of women, right? Where we work really hard, but as we're doing it, we're constantly telling ourselves, oh, you know what? Nothing ever works out for me. I'm just not good enough. It's not going to work. And what I didn't realize was that every single time I was saying that, I was attracting that same result because that's what I was focused on. And if you're not like, woo, I'm going to bring it down to earth a little bit here. And what I mean by that is every time we tell ourselves, I'm not good enough, as nothing ever works out for me, we take actions that are aligned with that belief, because that belief seeps into how we feel. So if you don't believe something is going to work for you, then you are just not going to take the actions, because why would you? Right. And the biggest thing for me was learning that limiting beliefs are always going to pop up. And it's something that we get to learn how to constantly soothe them, right? We get to let them show up, but we don't have to choose them. And learning that was a big game changer for me, because, I always just thought like, oh, I feel like a failure. I'm not good enough. So I'm just going to stop here. But every time we do that, then we give in to that old belief. And all beliefs are something that we have told ourselves over and over again until we believe it. So if you have this feeling of, nothing ever works out for me, I'm just not good enough, then you absolutely can change it. And it's very, very hard. I won't say impossible, but it is very, very hard to reach your goals when you're telling yourself that you can't, right? So we get to notice those beliefs and not make them wrong, because one thing that I also learned on my journey was that all beliefs served us in one way and limited in another, right? And when we do that, we get to take the power away. I used to have a belief that I wasn't good enough. And, it just, nothing ever worked out for me. And that sounds like a really sad belief, right? It sounds very limiting, but I can look back to that younger version of myself. And I know that that belief is what kept me going, right? That belief, when I told myself that, you know what, I'm just not good enough and nothing ever works out for me. Guess what? When I failed, I wasn't really disappointed because I was expecting it. So I kept going and I kept learning. Now, would it have been easier if I wasn't telling myself that the whole time? Absolutely. But here we are, right? So it's looking back and seeing that, like, okay, this belief did serve me at one point, but then asking yourself, is this the best belief that's going to get me where I want to go?
Mm.
And if it's not, it's like, okay, well, what belief can I replace it with? And the more we learn to replace those beliefs and repeat them over and over again, because again, we have to repeat it more than we said it the first time, right? So if you told yourself every day you're not good enough for 10, 20 years, we got some repetition to go into here. But the secret of this is you can instill a belief faster if you use emotion. So I find with affirmations and things, they get really fluffy, right? And people are just like, okay, well, if I want to switch from I'm not good enough to I am good enough, I'm just going to tell myself I'm good enough. But if you don't believe it when you say it, then it's not going to change anything, right? So allow yourself to notice those fears and know that they served you before, but just ask yourself, right? What's a belief that's going to help me get to where I want to go? And how can you convince yourself that it's true a little more every single day?
I like that. I always say that noticing is the first step and taking the pause after that.
Mm-hmm.
But I like inserting the question of, does this serve me, my future self? Does this serve where I want to go?
Mm-hmm.
And if not, how can I replace it? I really like that. That's a good practical tip. I want to go back. So you talk pretty openly about how you lost a good chunk of weight, you gained a good chunk of weight, you lost a good chunk of weight. It was kind of a little back and forth for you.
Mm-hmm.
And within that, there is some body dysmorphia that can show up. And it can actually show up anytime for anyone.
Yeah.
I think it's a topic that doesn't get talked about a lot. Can you let us know how that showed up for you and what that can look like?
Absolutely. So the craziest thing for me that really proved that body dysmorphia is more about our mind than our body is when I look back to pictures of me after I lost all the weight the first time. So I really don't like looking at pictures of me because I look sick, right? I don't look very confident. I am very, very slim. And, my eyes are kind of sunken in. And the craziest thing is when I got to that goal, my plan was originally to lose 30 pounds, right? But then what happened? I lost the 30 pounds. I still didn't feel good enough. And I was like, crap, okay, I'm going to try and lose another five. And I lost somewhere between 40 and 45 pounds. And at the time, I still didn't feel good enough. And it was like, okay, well, where else can I possibly lose weight? Because, they make us believe that weight loss is the only way we'll feel better. And at the time, I had no idea like how small and how I actually looked. And it was a really crazy experience for me to feel that way, but then see pictures of myself and be like, well, that's not how I look. Like, I don't look like that at all. And I saw it like multiple times throughout my journey. And it was really hard gaining weight because, again, we live in a society which is constantly telling us we need to lose weight. So that on its own was tricky. And I remember, getting up to a healthy weight and still feeling, not good enough, seeing myself differently. And I did a fitness competition in the middle of all that because, my body image wasn't bad enough. But I decided to do a fitness competition. And I remember waking up that day, still picking myself apart, like still finding, pieces on my stomach that I could pinch and areas I didn't like. And the craziest thing is I walked away with a first and a second place trophy that day. And I still, I was trophy worthy and I still didn't like what I saw. And of course, after that, that was when I finally, I didn't throw in the towel, but I was like, I'm sick and tired of dieting and tracking everything I eat and doing all these things. And I decided to let myself live life. And naturally, I gained weight doing that. And it was, again, a little bit of a discomfort thing. And finally, I kind of got back into it and remade what healthy kind of made to me. But what I think is wild is that our body image has literally nothing to do with how we look. And we think that it does because like it just makes sense. But like, have you ever woke up and felt really good about yourself, right? You caught yourself in the right light. Maybe you caught yourself at a good angle and you were feeling really good about yourself that day. You liked your outfit and you went on with your day. And then maybe not even 5 minutes later, you go past the bathroom mirror and the bathroom lighting is always bad. And you catch yourself at a wrong angle and you don't like what you see, right? Could your body have possibly changed from moment to moment? No, right? But the way we see it does.
Yeah.
And this is also something my friends and I talk about when we're talking about our favorite celebrities who have had Botox and surgery. And don't quote me on this because my friend said this to me, but she was saying that, Courtney Cox, when she was going through all of her surgery, she kind of went over the deep end a little bit. But it was the same thing. It was that body dysmorphia where you just over obsess on one portion, one piece of you, and you don't see yourself as a whole. Right. And that's how it is with weight loss, where we we obsess over our thighs or our stomach or our arms, but we don't get to see ourselves as a whole. And that's where our mind plays tricks on us. And this was where I really started integrating the mindset work into what I do, where I realized that body image and the way that I see myself comes down to the way I speak to and treat myself. And I realized that, once I started treating myself nicer and speaking nicer to myself, I started to actually see a body and a person worth loving. Now, those thoughts will still come up from time to time. It was ingrained in my brain for so long. So it's one of those things that, we don't realize that body image and body dysmorphia, where it's not just a one and done thing, right? And I think that it's, again, what you said, it's something we definitely don't have enough support on. But I think just knowing that you're not alone can really help, because we know that not everybody is comfortable in their body, but knowing that what you see isn't always what's there makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's the biggest thing, is knowing that you don't always see yourself how you actually look.
Right.
And we get to have some grace for ourselves.
And how others see you. Yeah. I mean, I know myself, I experienced this when I lost a good deal of weight as well. And yet some days would look in the mirror and see the previous version of myself, even though it was no longer there. Like, you also have these images of yourself just embedded from however many years. Yeah. And sometimes your brain doesn't catch up to the change of your body. And I really like what you said about some days you can, same exact day, you can feel like you look, there's days you get a nice outfit on, you get all dolled up and you feel really good. And then that same day, a couple hours later, you might be like, I'm looking pretty rough today. So that happens, but it's the same person, same day. So it really is a mind game. It's really, it's pretty mind-boggling, actually.
And before we move on, I want to touch on what you said there, because I remember in the beginning of when I was just working as a personal trainer in a gym, I had a client who had lost 30 pounds. Like, she looked great. Her husband was blown away. I mean, she wasn't doing it for her husband. Her husband, as always, they just always support you and they think you look beautiful no matter what. But we're all telling her, like, oh my gosh, like, you look amazing. She had to buy all new clothes, and she didn't see the change. And that for me was really mind-blowing, because if you don't intentionally learn to see yourself differently, you won't. Right. And I think so many women feel that way. And then it's like, what the heck do I have to do to be good enough? And then we come back into that old loop. Right.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. It's something to be aware of, right? To really recognize so that you can be more cognizant about it. Good stuff. So with all this fitness background that you have and personal training background, I know one of the things that you help your clients with is how to build a healthy lifestyle. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you was around coaching tips for getting active, staying active, especially for people who maybe don't have an exercise routine. Like, what are some practical tips we can give to folks to just get them started?
Absolutely. So I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that when you're starting a fitness, you're just trying to get more active, people think that they have to go from 0 to 100. And that couldn't be further from the truth, right? Like, if you are currently living a rather sedentary lifestyle, any movement is better than none. And my biggest tip is to start small and start fun, right? So this could be something as simple as, maybe 3 days a week, you go for a 10 to 15-minute walk with, a friend or a neighbor or your spouse. And making it short makes it in our brain. It's like, okay, this is doable. I can totally do this, right? So you feel more competent in doing it and you're more likely to do it. But then when we make it fun, then we actually start to look forward to it. And this comes down to combining a little bit of the mindset with an actionable step here, where instead of saying, okay, I have to start working out, changing it that to I get to work out and I get to move my body. Because as much as you might not believe it now, the more you start to say it, the more you'll believe it. And the reason it's so hard for so many of us to start a journey or a fitness like journey or whatever, or just routine, is because we've been told our whole lives that working out is a punishment, that working out is a negative thing, that I have to work out. So when you think of working out, you have a negative association with it. So if you can change that to a positive association where it's like, okay, I get to work out, I get to move my body. And like I said, adding either, finding a really fun podcast to listen to, maybe listen to this podcast as you walk, or a friend is going to give you something extra to look forward to. I actually still do this. I have a friend in my neighborhood and we try and walk together 3-4 days a week, and it makes it go by faster. We just have more fun, and it makes it something that I actually look forward to. But like I said, I really want to emphasize that any movement is better than nothing, because people think that they have to, if they're going to start, I might as well go to the gym 5 days a week. And that comes back to that all or nothing, right? If I can't do it perfectly, then it doesn't matter. But I always tell people that thinking you have to do it perfectly or it doesn't count is like getting a flat tire. And instead of just changing the tire, you slash the rest of them, right? It wouldn't make any sense. And it's the same thing, right? So my best advice is to start small and make it fun. And then I know that if you're not doing much movement, that might sound a little far-fetched, but what's going to happen is eventually you're going to crave more. So this will look like, maybe you add a little bit extra onto your walk, or maybe you walk another day of the week, or maybe you start going to a fitness class, or, you just start adding more things in. But when you start small, it builds that confidence in you that, okay, I can do this. And like I said, you actually start to notice the benefits. Plus, giving yourself extra rest days gives you a little bit of grace, because when you think that you have to be perfect, if you miss one, we tend to feel a feeling. But if you only need to get in 3 walks a week and you miss one on Thursday, well, it's okay. I can still get it in Friday or Saturday, right? So it gives you a little bit of grace. And I know it sounds like it's a nice and soft and whatever introduction to fitness, but honestly, I think that's what more people need. I think the boot camp, the, all or nothing thing is really on its way out. And the only way we get to change that is by, changing what we respond to.
I've found that for myself as well. Like if I tell myself I'm going to do something specifically around exercise or movement, 7 days a week, it's likely not going to happen, not even come close. But if I stick with, okay, I'll set my goal on 3 times a week. It, like you said, there's plenty of room. There's plenty of wiggle room there to make that work with your schedule. And then you just tend to do it. It's not as big of a deal, but it feels so heavy when it's 7 days a week. It just feels like another responsibility.
Exactly.
And for me, it's a turnoff. So I know that doesn't work for me. I think it also goes back to knowing yourself, knowing what will work for you. For some people, setting up a daily non-negotiable setting of a goal is a good thing. But for others, that just doesn't work because it's not something they really have the time for or the commitment to yet. So starting small is always better than that all or nothing attitude. So yeah, I like that tip. So let me ask you this. So you're doing this work now, especially now that you've kind of migrated more towards the coaching space, less of the personal training. What surprises you?
That's a good question. I would say that what surprises me is one thing that I always thought starting in personal training was that, people had to have one-on-one attention to get results and get better. And I underestimated the power of a group. And what's one thing that I love about group coaching is both being a coach and being in group coaching programs is that power of community. Because especially in something like fitness, where a lot of the times, your spouse maybe doesn't want to work out with you, and your friends are not quite on that train either. But when you are going through and you have a community of people who are doing it with you, not only is it that accountability piece, but when you're having a hard day, right? When you're having that bad body image day and you don't understand why, because you've been so good with your workouts and maybe the scale isn't moving and you're just starting to be hard on yourself, and you come to that community and, they are feeling the same way, then you just don't feel alone, right? You don't feel alone. You know that you're where you're supposed to be and you know that it's okay. And that feeling I've noticed with like being in business coaching programs and being with other entrepreneurs has really helped as well, because then I'm like, oh, this is totally normal. And it's like that power of doing things in a group. And, I love watching my clients support each other, right? I thought that I had to, do everything for everyone, which that's not necessarily the case, right? Because sometimes what's going to help them is listening to a peer instead of me. And it's honestly, it's really kind of brought back my faith in, society and women in general, because I was one of those kids who I was bullied in school. I was not like the mean girls in high school. They mean girled hard. And like, I never saw women as being overly supportive, except for those like very close to me. But I always saw groups as like a scary thing. And it's been really empowering to watch like groups of women come together and lift each other up. And it's been one of the most beautiful and surprising things since being a coach.
I agree with you. I think community is so important, especially now that we're living this very virtual world. I think that, you can get community without even leaving your house now. But I think it's important to find the right tribe, because unfortunately, there still are those mean girls out in the world, right? There's mean girls, mean guys, whatever. But I think that's one of the things that's really important. And as you get older and really figure out who you are and start doing the work, aligning yourself with people that have that same frame of thought, kind of trying to do the same things. And you can have that support, because we're all going to have ups and downs. We're all going to feel good some days and feel less okay other days. And to be able to lean on each other and pull each other forward when you need that, and push each other as well. I think that's so important and it's so impactful, but you do have to find the right tribe, because I don't think it's a one size fits all. So I think that's a really great tip.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Right. And sometimes it takes a little time. So I think if somebody tries to, get into a group, you sign up for a group, and it doesn't work out, don't be scared to try a different one, because I think, you can find different people that you fit better with.
Totally.
You will find your tribe.
Yes.
So as we wrap up, I just want to do two things. I want to say that I will put all of your links in the show notes, but I usually like to ask, where are you most active and where can people find you the most?
I am most active on Facebook and in my Facebook group, but I also am like regularly active and interactive on Instagram and TikTok. Instagram, I find, is my most like interactive platform, with actually like, in the DMs and through stories, but I post most frequently in Facebook. Absolutely. I love interacting with people there and answering people's questions, but also just like sharing people's wins and being able to connect with them there. It's, really bringing the social back into social media.
Yeah, I agree. Again, and it's building community, right? I think that's what it's all about. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been great to catch up with you and to get your thoughts on some of these topics. I know that they're, again, near and dear to the folks that listen to the show and that are in my group. So I'm really excited to be able to bring this to them. So thank you again for taking the time.
Oh, it was my pleasure. I had a great time chatting with you, and I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Message in the Middle with Marianne. If you enjoyed the podcast, please take a minute to share it and write a review, as it helps bring new listeners to our audience. If you'd like to keep the conversation going between episodes, please join us at Facebook group Message in the Middle with Marianne.